Hey everybody, it's Mike from the Mike Wagner Show, powered by Sonic Web Studios and brought to you by official sponsor of the Mike Wagner Show, international warring author Mia Molson's The Missing, available on Amazon and paperback and ebook. We're here with a terrific gentleman who's a former career firefighter now and authenticity and also identity coach based out of Oklahoma City. He served the last 10 years for the Oklahoma City Fire Department, promoted to major and gaining a lot of skills and insights that would change him for forever, basically. And he also lived a very interesting life, trials, triumphs, tribulations, and hopes the story will inspire many others not to fear. He's a host of the Authentic On Air podcast. It's created to give something back to the world. He struggled with ADHD and trying to fit in. And of course, he talks about how he managed to overcome and all the obstacles to get where he's at today. Live, ladies and gentlemen, Plus Studios in beautiful downtown Oklahoma City, former career firefighter and also a authenticity identity coach and the host of the amazing podcast, Authentic On Air podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, the multi-talented Bruce Alexander. Bruce, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Mike. That was a great introduction, and I hope I can live up to the hype. I think my story is pretty interesting, but I'm kind of biased.
Well, we'll see if we can match that first of all. But before we get to that, you're a former career firefighter, now an authentic authenticity and identity coach. You served the last 10 years for the Oklahoma City Fire Department. You're promoted to major. You gain skills, insight to that'll take you for the rest of your life. You'll live a very interesting life of trials, triumphs, and tribulations. Hopefully, people will learn from them. And you also host the Authentic On-Air podcast, created to basically give something back to the world. You struggle with ADHD most of your life and trying to fit in and how to manage to overcome it. For those who have it, you've got some great insight to it as well. And you're also, as we mentioned, the host of the Authentic On-Air podcast. And before getting all that, Bruce, tell us how you first got started.
Oh man, there's so much. So I guess I'll jump into the fire department first. I was a restaurant manager about 13 years ago,
Mm,
and my wife was pregnant with our third child,
wow.
and a little bit before that, I realized I was not making ends meet being a restaurant manager. It was not going to do it with that third child coming. My dad had been a career firefighter before me, and he'd been pressing me to do it pretty much since I graduated high school. And the pressure started to get really real. Having that third bun in the oven, I was like, this is not going to do it. So I guess I'll finally try the fire department thing. It was a move I made basically out of fear because I didn't want to, didn't want to let my family down. And for a long time, it was the right move. It allowed me to create a much better financial situation for my family, and it allowed me to develop myself enough to have enough of a positive self image as a firefighter to see that I could do more with my life than what I was doing before, which was basically just I was in survival mode, trying to just kind of eke through. And the fire department helped me see that there was a brighter future for me. That was not what the fire department for me. For many people it is, but with my ADHD and some of the issues with working with people for 24 hours at a time, living with them and being like really different from them, both different. And like most of the people that I worked with were not black. I worked with a lot of white people. I was the only black person in my whole district at the time. um, Being ADHD, like I just had a different way of communicating that they didn't like or understand, and so I felt really isolated. And it just grew because I tried really hard to figure out what they wanted and be that, and it just made me like a worse, watered down version of myself. And that just continued to grow and grow. And I was good at the job. I was able to promote and eventually make major pretty fast, actually, because like I'm a pretty smart dude. And whenever I promoted to major, I promoted into the public education field, which is pulled me out of the field. I was no longer running into fiery houses, but I was working in the preventative side, helping to educate people so they wouldn't create those fiery situations. And I really enjoyed that part. And I was pretty good at that as well. But the same thing persisted, in which I didn't really ever fit into the culture. That was pretty obvious that they they didn't like the way I did things, and I never really understood it because the the objectives that were set before me, I was crushing. Like they put me in charge of running the 501c3, and I brought in more money than had ever been brought in for the 501c3. They put me in charge of doing the the 5K event that the 501c puts in, we had more participation than we'd ever had. Like everything that they were putting in front of me, I was crushing. But because I didn't understand at the time the importance of relationships when working in any sort of like collective setting, I was missing. You can be the best employee whenever it comes to results, but if you're not building relationships, you're always going to be expendable. And that's something that I didn't learn until after I left the fire department, was that I was expendable because I didn't have anybody who had my back, because nobody really liked me because I came to work to work. And when people started talking to me about stuff that was not related to what I was there to get done, I would just, put my headphones on and be like, I'm going to get back to work now. And you can't do that. As much
Mm.
as, as much as I really just wanted to get the things done because that's what I was there to do. You have to play the game to some degree in order to have any sort of job security. And that's something that I really appreciate the life lesson, because I can now help so many people with that, because a lot of people do, like especially ADHD people struggle with the same thing. They go to work and they think that they're crushing their job. They're doing so great because they're actually doing the job well. But in today's world, it is so much more about building relationships and being a good team member than it is about being like really great at your job. So that is kind of how I ended up in a position where I was on shaky ground with my work situation, and it got to a toxic enough to where it was like either you need to quit or you're going to get fired, and I decided to leave and avoid the possible legal fight that could be there, because I was going to be pretty much unhireable while I tried to fight it. So I decided, I was like, whatever, I'm gonna swallow my pride and I'm just gonna start over. And in that time, I kind of did some research about my ADHD, started to understand some of the fault that I had shirked in the past. I kind of made it all about everything that they did and how they had mistreated me, which there was some mistreatment, there was some hostile work environment stuff, a lot of stuff that was not handled great on their part. But my side of the street wasn't clean at all either. I wasn't doing what I needed to do to give them the opportunity to help me thrive. And so I take responsibility for that now. And everything that I've learned is what I put into coaching like ADHD men now. Like I've kind of gone away from the authenticity and identity coach and just accepted life coach for ADHD men. It's, for one, it's easier to say, and for two, like
Hmm.
I think it's I wanted to just, for a long time I wanted to push away that life coach moniker, because it sounds kind of woo woo and kind of goofy, but like for ADHD men, some of us really do need advice on how to do life. Like it's the simplest thing of, I'm struggling in my life. Who's going to help me? And a life coach is a person who's going to do that. Somebody who's had a similar life to what you're going through, or understands what you're going through in your life, and is going to help guide you get through those obstacles. And that's what I do. So I was like, I'm a life coach for ADHD men. It's
Hmm.
much easier.
And you also talked about some of the struggles with the ADHD, and of course the fire department dealing with the governmental side, the public service, and everything else. What are some of the careers that would suit best for ADHD? If it's not firefighter work or even restaurant, what are some of the careers that would be suitable for ADHD people?
I think that I don't think that there's necessarily like any bad job for ADHD people, as long as you are aware of what your deficiencies are. And that's something that I was missing, is I was coming into this situation not understanding how my ADHD was a deficiency. When you have to have so much interaction with people, like if you're dealing with people you live with 24 hours a day, you need to be able to communicate on a pretty high level to get along on a day-to-day basis. Excuse me. I can talk great, but getting across the things that were actually important to me, having a set of values and beliefs that were important that I wouldn't let be encroached upon, all those things I didn't have. And so saying that the fire department isn't a good job for ADHD people, I disagree. It's actually a really good job if you understand going into it that there's going to be some challenges that you have to navigate. And because there's so much, being on a 24-hour shift where you're going to go on a car wreck, you're going to possibly work a full arrest, you're going to fight a fire, you're going to make a car wreck, you're going to do all this different stuff. It's really exciting. So you're never really bored, and whenever you're like not making rides, there's still plenty of stuff to do, so your mind is always working, and there's always like lots of ways to like get training and to continue to have growth. So I don't think that it's so much there's great jobs for ADHD people. It's like having the self-awareness to know what your strengths and deficiencies are and being able to navigate those whenever you go into a workplace. I think that's super duper important. Whenever you're going to go work under the close supervision of other people, you understand that your ADHD will be a factor. Like you can't, this is like in my early job in the restaurant, I was late all the time. And instead of just calling and saying, "Hey, running a little behind today," I'd always try to sneak in the back door and and slide in like it wasn't a problem. They always noticed, and I couldn't just get the lesson through like just call, and then for one I can stop rushing and driving dangerously, and then they can plan to make allowances for me being late, so it's not so stressful for everybody. Whenever you're waiting on somebody and like your tickets are starting to fill up, and the restaurant's starting to lots of people are coming to the restaurant, and you're waiting for that one more person that kind of helps pull the team together, that's very stressful. But if you know that person's just 5 minutes out, that makes things a lot easier. If you don't know they're going to show up, that's a bad situation. So I think just the encouragement to communicate early and often, and be really really transparent with the fact that you struggle with being on time, you struggle with emotional dysregulation. Like sometimes things hurt my feelings a little bit longer than it might for the normal person. Like I don't rage out at work or anything, but whenever I get bad news, like I'm gonna take it bad for a little while. Like I'm gonna need a couple minutes to get my stuff together, and then for the rest of the day, I might just not really feel like talking that much. If you don't know that that's an ADHD like symptom, you're gonna think I'm being a brat. And as much as it kind of it might be seen as the same thing, if it's a medical symptom versus you just not knowing how to act, I feel like the people are your supervisors are going to react differently. So
Hmm. And of course, being a firefighter just like your dad. And how do you think your dad, thought you did as a firefighter, despite what you went through 10 years?
um he was my dad and I have a pretty complicated relationship. We actually don't talk very much right now because when I left the job, he kind of lost a lot of respect for me. He was so happy whenever I finally decided to become a firefighter. Our relationship really changed and got a lot better. And then whenever the job went away, so did he. And I don't know if he, because I think my dad is undiagnosed ADHD and like possibly on the autism spectrum, and he really holds a grudge, and he really like plays out these dreams that he has for things, and when they don't go his way, he doesn't adjust well. And so whenever like I was like, "Hey dad, like I'm happy, my family's taken care of," like the job was like it was too much pressure, like I couldn't breathe. I woke up every morning like dreading going to work. That's not what you want from me, is it? And he basically told me that I was throwing my life away by leaving a job that I had to leave. It was like that's that's not support, dad. That's you wanting me to do exactly what you want me to do, or cut me out of your life. And that's kind of what's happened. So it's unfortunate, but you know most of the time ADHD and autism are passed down genetically, and if you've been diagnosed and your parents haven't been, sometimes it kind of helps to look back and say, yeah, maybe it's not that they just hate me or don't like me. They're just not diagnosed with a mental disability that makes things more difficult to process than they realize.
Mhm. It's also a thought process as well, too, like with the chemistry, the brain, and everything else. And how about learning disabilities? How is that tied in?
Learning disabilities, I haven't personally dealt with learning disabilities a lot, but I know that it is a struggle that often happens like as a comorbidity to ADHD. Like just for one, it's hard to learn whenever your brain is stressed out. So like that to me, with all the neurodiverse uh, disabilities, stress makes them all worse. If you are a person on the autism spectrum, or if you have ADHD or whatever, if you're also under stress, all of the symptoms that you exhibit are going to be times 5, times 10, depending on the level of your stress you're in. So a lot of times I talk about like the way I coach is not about trying to fix people. It's about trying to like embrace your life where it's at, allow yourself to like uh, embrace self acceptance, so then you can start to grow. Because just removing some of the negative self talk and stress of um, of beating yourself up all the time because you're not good enough or whatever just adds more stress to your life and makes the symptoms flare up even worse. And then it's this never ending cycle of more stress and more symptoms, more stress and more symptoms. And it's, if you can just say like, okay, I have ADHD and sometimes I'm late and sometimes I don't use the right words and sometimes I forget why I walk into a room, and that's okay. Then you can like just release some of that stress, and then the symptoms will start to shrink some too. They're not going to go away, but they're going to be more manageable. And then from there you can start to make a plan as to how you're going to operate in your day-to-day life more efficiently and keep that stress away.
And of course, how do you get to a point to become a coach as well, too? We'll talk about that with the host of the Authentic On Air podcast, Bruce Alexander. But first, listen to the Mike Wagner Show at the MikeWagnerShow.com, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at SonicWebStudios.com for all your needs. Looking at a professional website without breaking your budget, Sonic Web Studios is the answer. Sonic Web Studios offers fast, affordable custom web designs that blow the competition away. Call today, 1-800-303-3960. That's 1-800-303-3960, or email to support@sonicwebstudios.com. Mention the Mike Wagner Show, get 20% off your first project. Sonic Web Studios, take your image to the next level. Also, time to give official shout out to the official sponsor of the Mike Wagner Show, international warring author Mia Molson-Zia. If you love fast-paced mysteries, you love Missing by Mia Molson-Zia, available on Amazon in paperback and ebook. Missing is fast-paced and intriguing with an unforgettable twist. Takes place in 4 countries, 2 strangers, 1 target, where truth is illusion and those who love be the first go missing. It's available on Amazon in paperback and ebook. Missing by Mia Molson-Zia has garnered great reviews. An Eve 11 endorsed by Howard celebrities, including Joanna Cassidy, Forbes Riley, and Minos. So grab your copy today for Girls Missing by Mia Molson-Zia, available on Amazon. Also, check out the Mike Wagner Show at the MikeWagnerShow.com on over 40 podcast platforms. Heard in 100 countries, including Facebook, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, also Apple Music, Odyssey, iTunes, Google Play, as well as Amazon as well, and also Podbean, Buzzsprout, Pandora, TuneIn, and also follow on BitChute, Rumble, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook, and more. Make sure you take us with Amazon.com. Check out the Mike Wagner Show podcast. T-shirts, pop sockets, throw pillows, tote bags, hoodies. Makes great gifts 24/7. Go to Amazon.com. Check out the Mike Wagner Show podcast. And for more great gift ideas, go to Amazon.com/Mia Molson-Zia for great books like Missing, Once, and Wrinkles. Also T-shirts, pop sockets, hoodies, phone cases, and more. Amazon.com/Mia Molson-Zia. Check it out today and support the Mike Wagner Show on Anchor FM, PayPal, and the MikeWagnerShow.com. We're here with former career firefighter, now authenticity identity coach, and the host of the Authentic On Air podcast of Oklahoma City, Bruce Alexander, here on the Mike Wagner Show. And before we talk about your podcast, that seems to be your pride and joy, how did you first get that part about being a coach as well? And tell us about your journey.
Sure. So coming out of that, you know, that whole mess of the fire department, um, I had to like reset my priorities. Like my identity had become being a firefighter. Because like I said, I moved into the fire department thinking that I was like afraid of I wasn't be able to provide. I had no identity. There was nothing I had about me except for fear. And so I just glommed onto the fire department as like the positive thing in my life. Is like, I'm a firefighter. That's something to be proud of. And it is something to be proud of, but I made it my whole identity. So whenever I left, I was left identityless again, but this time with a higher sense of thinking. And I noticed that I didn't have an identity this time. I was able to see like that separation of the career and self was messing me up. I was kind of lost. I was like, oh my God, like I'm not a firefighter anymore. Who am I? Like what matters to me? And as I started to dig into that, I realized that this was the problem of that had kind of everything that I had done wrong in my life could be traced back to the fact that I had no defined identity. I let other people make decisions for me. I went along with stuff that I didn't really believe in. I let myself get put in compromising situations because I didn't have the guts to say this isn't right, because I didn't have any operating manual for what was important to me in my life. So as I'm figuring all this stuff out, and my wife is a big part of this because she's, you know, my as I'm like kind of spinning out, I'm starting to behave in ways that are not really lining up with who I claim to be. And I've been masking for so long in the fire department, pretending to be somebody I wasn't, that I didn't even know, like I didn't know who I was. So the actions were not matching up with who I was pretending to be half the time, because I didn't really know what to match up with. So as I'm, this huge life event forced me to look at what was actually important in my life. And as I started to dig into that, I realized that this was not, I'm not the only person who's ever had this problem. It's actually a pretty common thing that people kind of meander through their lives without ever having defined what's important to them. And as I figured that out and I, devised a strategy for me to be able to, like, for one, figure out what's important to me, define my core values and beliefs, how to figure out goals from that, and a system to like keep those things in place and use them as your compass to navigate through life. I was like, this is something important that people should have. Why doesn't everybody have this? And the reason became obvious because nobody told me. Who's telling other people, who's telling other ADHD men that they don't, like, you're operating without an instruction manual? Do you realize this? And I started talking to some of my friends and my wife, and I was like, do you think this is something that people need? And they're like, yeah. Like, one of my best friends is, was my first client because he's like, I need that. Like, I absolutely need that. So that's, kind of how I started. Is that my one of my best friends was my first client, and he was, kind of my guinea pig on putting this, the system that I developed for myself onto somebody else. Like, how am I going to make it transferable? Because I don't want to put my values and beliefs on other people. That's not the goal. That's not useful, because you may not believe what I believe and you may not value what I value. But I can teach you how I figured it out and teach you how to, like, put those things into place. So then you have an instruction manual for your life that actually uh, aligns with who you are at your core. And whenever, like, through kind of some adjustment through that process, I came up with something really good that, I just released a fifth, like, well, it's a digital workbook, but that actually takes you step by step through this process of how you figure out your life instruction manual. And then you can keep that, keep copies of it on your phone, on your work computer, on your laptop, whatever. So you always have that close until you have it, like, completely assimilated into your subconscious. But until that point, you pull it out whenever you're having big discussions, whenever you've got like a big decision to make. Pull this thing out, because the first thing that goes whenever we get under stress is our decision making skills. We forget what's important to us because now we're stressed and we start thinking about survival versus actually thriving. Like, you want to make decisions that are going to help you thrive, not just survive. But our caveman brain wants to get back to survival. They just want to make sure that you don't die.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not usually the best decision for making decisions out of fear don't help you thrive. So that's, that kind of guided me to, like, I've got something that I think I can, and like I said, being in the fire department gave me a lot of skills. Like, I've been, I was a public educator for a few years that allowed me to, like, present to people and kind of coach people about, like, life safety. And, like, I had this lots of experience just having, client interaction. And I liked that. And I liked presenting to people. Like, I liked doing the presentations, and I was good at helping people uh, assimilate these ideas into their lives. So it was like, this kind of feels like a natural fit. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I like talking and I like teaching people things. Like, that's basically coaching. I think this is going to work.
Mm-hmm. Well, speaking of coaches, and you understand, what is of you and what it takes and everything else, guiding through step by step. What are some of the coaches that you have followed throughout the years, like say with Tony Robbins, or say with Dale Carnegie, or along those lines as well? So who are some of the coaches that you have followed, or mentors that you've looked up to?
Yeah, Tony Robbins is, like, he's kind of the goat of whenever it comes to, like, life coaching. I'm not going to say he's the originator, but he's the first person to take it to, like, such an epic level. And, like, as marketable as he is, like, I don't hold any, like, ill will towards him. I don't see him as, like, having sold out or anything. I think that he's done it in a really organic way and has grown something that is, like, kind of an empire. But it is, like, I still feel like his heart is really in it, and he's really helping so many people kind of have the right mindset. So he's somebody I go to. I like to read some older books as well, like The Greatest Salesman in the World by Mandino, and The Richest Man in Babylon. Those are, like, some of my current, like, working things. And then I also Garrett J. White. He's kind of newer in the pantheon of motivational speakers, as far as, considered to, like, Tony Robbins. I think that he's kind of the one who kind of really put it in my heart that I really needed to start putting myself out there more
Hmm.
and really leaning into being a life coach versus trying to like, spin it as like this broad authenticity thing. Like I want to help people with their lives. So I want to be a life coach. And I like his like, some of his videos really helped me lean into that. Also like Dean, probably gonna say his last name wrong, Dean Grazioni, I believe. He like
It's somewhere along the lines. Yes.
yeah, he's another one that he's said a couple of things that have really spoken to my heart. And I don't go to the well too often for outside inspiration, but sometimes like whenever I lose my way just a little bit, I like to check in with those guys, and it helps a lot.
Hmm. And certainly does as well too. You talk about hitting a point where it's like you need to change or something. There's a lot of people there out there that need like a career change, and of course, the whole status of the job market. It's really unstable and everything. What are some of the steps that people should take when it comes to a career change, or like say you lose your job? It's almost like what's next. What are some of the steps that you take, assess, and everything like that? It's like what's like the best advice you can give to anybody, especially going through a career change, losing a job, etc. Or even burnout
Yeah,
too, especially. Burnout has been the number one when it comes to in the United States, not just PTSD or anything like that. Job burnout has been a big number one.
yeah, and for me, like it all comes back to the same thing. The people who are getting burned out, who are getting their boundaries trampled upon at work, they don't know what they want to do with their lives. They're kind of lost in the career field. It all comes back to not having an instruction manual for your life. If you don't know where you want to get, how are you going to make moves to get there? Like I mean, it really is so simple. It's crazy. Whenever you are trying to like grow your life and like make moves, it's really kind of silly that you have to tell people like, okay, what do you want to do? And they say, well, I don't really know. Well, you do know. You need to define it. Like first identify it, define it, write it down, and commit to it. If you want to be, like for me, it's not so much like this is the specific thing I want to do. For me, it's like I want to help people learn and I want to educate them. So that's the thing that I'm called to do. Like I really feel passionate about that. So coaching was one of the first ways that I was like, hey, I think that this really helps me meet that, that belief that I'm good at helping people learn and educating them. So I went with that. But if this didn't work, then maybe I could be a counselor or some sort of other kind of educator, or maybe I could just work on my podcast more. There's a lot of different ways that I can educate people, and I don't have to get so defeated and beat myself up if this one thing doesn't work, because I know that I'm really good at educating people and I know that I love doing it. So if you're getting like hyper focused on the one way that you've ever done things, maybe take a step back, like just pull back a little bit and say, okay, what is it about this job that I was good at? What is it that I want to do? Like, what is my desire in the world? And sometimes to get that desire, you might have to work at McDonald's like a couple days a week while you put money away so you can like, start your own business, or you can continue to apply for the thing that really, lights you up. But if you're working towards that ultimate goal versus that becomes your identity, like a McDonald's worker identity probably doesn't really light a fire under your butt every morning, right? But
Unless
if
you're looking
you're
forward to Big Macs, Egg McMuffins, or those chocolate shakes, or meeting Ronald McDonald one day, you never know.
oh, that's true. I mean, if
Or those
Ronald
Happy
comes in the house,
Meals.
then that's a big deal. But if you're doing it to serve a greater purpose, then you're going to have a lot more motivation about it. You're going to say, hey, I got to go get this McDonald's money today so I can put away for my bigger thing that's coming next. It makes it so much easier to face the day-to-day grind if it's for something. And that's my biggest piece of advice I could give anybody who has lost their job and is looking for purpose, is like figure out what you actually want to do. Where do you want to go? And then work backwards from there versus saying like, I don't have a job, I just got to find a job. I got Take a second, slow down. You don't have a job. That means you have endless possibility right now. You
Hmm.
could literally do anything. You
Right.
just have to decide what you want to do and work from there and figure out
Hmm.
how you're going to get to that goal.
Mhm. And of course, you're trying to figure out, what you do career wise and finding your skills and everything. What are your thoughts on the tests out there right now, like the Rorschach, Briggs Myers, and also the quadrants as well, like the career tests, like Briggs Myers, and some of the popular tests out there to determine your careers.
I'm not the only test I've ever done, not ever done. The only test I really a talk about very much is the Enneagram test. Like I think that the Enneagram is pretty locked in. As far as career testing goes, I don't think it's important. Like I think it's more what's more important is that what you desire to do. What's the goal? Like how do you feel like you're called to help people? How do you feel like you can create a positive change in this world? Those are the things that are more important to me. Is some tests could tell me that I'm terrible for a life coach. And I would say, I disagree. I'm gonna try it. And
Hmm.
so like, you know, I'm not going to say that they're not helpful, but I think it's more important that you start from the inside and you go out from there.
Hmm. And I think that is important as well, too. You mentioned podcasting as well, too. We'll talk about your authentic on air podcast in just a minute with Bruce Alexander. You listen to the Mike Widener Show at the MikeWidenerShow.com, powered by Sonic Web Studios, and brought to you by official sponsor of the Mike Widener Show, international warring author Mia Molson's The Missing. We'll be back with the multi-talented Bruce Alexander of the Authentic On Air podcast after this time. We're back with the host of the Authentic On Air podcast, former career firefighter, now authenticity identity coach Bruce Alexander of Oklahoma City here on the Mike Widener Show. And you covered your amazing career and told your story and everything else and how you help others, inspire others. And you also have a podcast called the Authentic On Air podcast. And tell us more about that.
Yeah, so the whenever I kind of struck out on my own and I started this business of an authenticity and identity coach, um, it was a really broad idea. Like I went back to school like towards the end of my career at the fire department. I was also going back to school to get my bachelor's. So that's another great thing the fire department gave. They paid for it. So like before I left, I was able to leave with my bachelor's degree paid for by the fire department. So that was great. But while I was in school, like I was doing graphic design and I was doing photography and I really enjoy doing those things. So I was like, that's what I want to do. I want to do that. I want to help people show up as themselves in their content that they create. And I was like, that sounds really cool. Okay, that's a great idea. And then I was like, how do I do that? Okay, so then it's going to be kind of coaching and it's going to be like content creation, like coaching plus graphic design plus content creation. Well, and then also it's going to be social media. And like it turned into this like massive, like this huge mass of like different services I offered because I've got I'm ADHD, so I pick up a lot of new habits and I learn a lot of new skills and I'm able to get good at things pretty fast because I just like hyper focus on them. But my wife, in all her infinite wisdom, was like, "You're trying to offer way too much. If you get hired by three people and you're offering all this stuff, you're not going to be able to keep up. Like you're never going to be able to scale with this." And I I took my feelings that were very hurt and put them back in my in my bag and was like, I'm going home. And then I thought about it for a while and I was like, she's absolutely right. I'm offering too much. What is the thing that is like what am I the best at? I like graphic design. Am I the best at it? No. I like photography. No, I'm not the best at that either. The coaching part is what I'm the best at. It's what I have the most experience doing. It's what people don't come to me for photography. My friends are like, "Hey, I need advice. Like, would you mind like can I talk to you for a minute?" Like that's what people come to me for is they want my opinion on things. So why would I not lean into the thing? And I also enjoy that just as much as photography. So why would I not lean into that thing? And so I pulled everything back and was like, all right, this is going to be about coaching people, but it was still this broad spectrum authenticity. And whenever I was like, okay, how am I going to get people? Like, how am I going to start to, drum up business for this thing? And I was like, oh, podcasts are pretty good for that. And I was like, okay, so I started to think about the idea of doing a podcast to generate business, and I started thinking about how I would like what that would look like, and I was like, well, I would, I want to help people show up as themselves. So the podcast will be about that. And then the more I thought about that, the less it became about generating business, and the more it came about the actual safe space that I was trying to create. And I got really into just like creating this safe space where people could show up as themselves and tell their stories and talk about their authentic journeys and what that's looked like and how, people, have all different kinds of obstacles to showing up as themselves and how some people face it differently than others and how some people are still trying to figure out how to show up as themselves. And, in whatever iteration it is, doing that. And it's been a really exciting journey. And I'm starting to finish up season one. Like I've got like 4 to 6 more episodes to release, and I think I'm just gonna like pivot a little bit to focus a little bit more on ADHD, because like your authentic story is so broad, and a lot of my episodes were like over 2 hours long, up to 3 hours long sometimes, and that's, I think it's a lot for people. Like as much as the people I know who listen to it like really enjoy it. I like my wife tells me, she's like, yeah, I only listen to it whenever I have to do notes for you because it's too much. It's too much for me. And I hate the idea that somebody's going to turn off the story because it's just too much. So
Mhm.
I want to try to like just narrow it down a little bit so the people who are there for it are there for that story, and they're going to get all of that story. But it'll usually, I think, be closer to an hour, hour and a half.
Mhm. You talk about authentic stories and, people inspiring everything. What's been the most authentic story that you really heard about and really moved you?
So I'm gonna like cop out a little bit and say there's two of them, because one of them is it hasn't released yet. So I'll talk about that one first. This guy Peter Evans, who came on the show, who I respect the heck out. Like I really kind of put this guy on a pedestal because he is, I call him a natural networker. Like whenever he walks into a room, everybody knows who he is, and he's so smooth, and shakes all the hands and kisses all the babies, and everybody's just like, "Oh yeah, that's Peter. He's so great. He's everywhere. He's so good at this and this." And so whenever he came on the show, I was like, "Oh, this is going to be a story about like how to crush networking." And then we start talking, and he opens up that like he never wanted to be that. He never
Really?
wanted. Yeah, exactly. Like I was like, "What?"
Wow.
And he was, he's like, I actually, every time I'm going into one of those events, I had a panic attack for the longest time.
Wow.
And I was so surprised because he's so good at it. And he's like, yeah, I was pushing myself into depression, trying to be everything for everyone until he started therapy like a couple of years back. And still to this point, he was still trying to rectify who he actually was with the person that everybody knew. Like he wanted to be that guy. Like the guy that I was describing is who he wanted to be, but not for him, for me and for everybody else who thought it. And so for him to come on and to drop that bomb on the show was really amazing. And it's still my most viewed show, our most listened to show by like a lot, like not
Wow.
even close. And he was so surprised because he just said, like, I never thought anybody would want to hear my story. And I'm like, dude, like the power of your story is so incredible. Like each individual story that everybody has is going to touch somebody if you tell it. If you
Mhm.
tell it and you tell it honestly, these stories are so powerful. And that's, it's the first time he'd really ever been honest about the things that he faced. And he got like such an outpouring of support, and people were really, really moved by it. And I felt so special that that happened on my show. Like I was like, that is so cool that he shared that here, that he felt safe enough to really tell his story here. And so that made me feel really good about what I'd created there. The second one was I had a couple of women on my show who host a podcast called the Marvelous Mistonic Muggles podcast, and it talks a lot about domestic abuse, and it's a pretty deep podcast. I had both of them on as a podcasting duo, and then I had them each on separately, and all three of those are great episodes. But the third episode is one I haven't released yet. I'm not going to say her name because I think she's still in the situation, but she is currently in a domestic violence situation in
Mm.
which she's trying to create a path for a safe exit. And this kind of blew my mind. Like I knew that she'd been abused in her relationship previous to this, but I wasn't aware whenever she came on the show that she was currently still in a situation.
Oh my.
And yeah, and she really, it was a really emotional episode, and there was, a lot of tears and like a lot of like deep, vulnerable honesty. And it was, she went there, and I was like, oh my God, like this is so much. And yeah, I was just really happy that I was able to, facilitate a space where she felt comfortable sharing that. I pray for her safety, that she's able to get out of that situation soon. And I'm just not going to share that episode until she's safe. That's something that is,
Yeah.
something I
Yeah.
told her from the very
Yeah,
beginning.
that's understandable. Someone could be out there stalking, trying to go after her and everything. That's understandable. I
Yeah.
understand you. Hmm.
Yeah. So, but that was like a really moving experience. And yeah, I really loved the whole process of becoming a podcaster, even through all the frustrations of trying to figure out the right audio setup and the the correct video setup. And am I going to use Zoom? No, I can't use Zoom because they cut off at 45 minutes if you're not pro. Can I use Google Meet? No, that's not going to work. And there's all these different things that you have to figure out, and then you finally figure that out, and then you find out that something else that you had figured out isn't compatible with that something. I was like, I thought this was going to be fairly easy because I had some experience doing like video and stuff. I was like, yeah, this shouldn't be that hard. And there's a lot of unsuspected things, and you really have to, well, you have to want it. It has to be about much more than money, because the money doesn't come until way later. And that's only if you like are really consistent and you really kind of have a game plan about you. You have to really want to share the thing that's important to you. So like that's something I tell all people who talk to me about podcasting is like, don't do it for the money. Do it because you love, like, you're passionate about the thing that you want your show to be about.
And for a purpose as well too. And we live in a society, unfortunately, they want something, right away, right now. They want the glory and everything. It's almost like what happened to the days of taking time to build. It's almost like nobody wants to build things solid. They want things done like right away. This is really sad.
I mean, I completely agree, and that's a that that immediate gratification, I feel like, is kind of part of the reason why the idea of having goals has kind of fizzled out for like these more these younger generations, because they're so used to being able to say this is what I want and then getting it right then, that they don't have to set goals. They're like, I want to I want to be famous, and you can post a TikTok video and get 500-600 likes, and it's like, I'm
Oh
famous
my
now.
gosh, yeah, that's just so outrageous. And then somebody was asking me, it's like, how come I got so many views? I'm like, that's really none of your concerns. It's like, I haven't had an episode a while back. I did about, oh God, 4 years ago, and all of a sudden it just hit like 1,000. It just keeps climbing and climbing and climbing. That stuff takes time. People need to understand that.
Yeah. Especially in the podcast world, I feel like, we were talking about earlier how it's, kind of a throwback to the radio days. And, a radio show could be around for 15 years and you never heard of it if you're not inside a specific, what is it called? The coverage area. And then, once it gets enough like power and syndication, then they throw it out to another coverage area. Then all of a sudden it's there, but that doesn't happen until it's been fully vetted in one region. Like it's got to do the job for a long time before that happens. People don't they're not used to putting in that kind of work. Like I mean, I'm guilty of it myself. Whenever I got to episode 10 and my views were going, or sorry, my listens were going down on my podcast, I was like, what is happening? Like, I've been consistent, it's supposed to start going up now. And but
Hmm.
you kind of have to just put your head down and just keep doing the work in this industry.
Hmm. And of course, that's a thing we can all learn as well too. And of course, where can we find the Authentic On Air podcast? Where can we find you and all your works at?
Yeah, so the podcast is on all major podcast platforms. I don't know that I can name nearly as many as well as you do. You really rattled those things off, but I know that my main ones are, I'm on iTunes, Spotify, Podbean is my host, and then I'm on the Deezer and really all the ones that I know of. I'm on Listen Notes and all that stuff. So that's where you can find my podcast, Authentic on Air with Bruce Alexander, and I'll be releasing. I took a couple weeks off for the holidays. I'll be releasing a new episode next week. And um, if you are interested in me as a coach, you can go to www.authentic on air. I'm sorry, AuthenticIdentityManagement.com for my like full website. And right now I've got a special course I've just released, and it's called the 9 Steps for the ADHD Dad to Radically Improve Communication. It's a digital course that you could do in your own time and on your own time. And with that, right now, I'm giving away a free digital download of my Unmasking ADHD Blueprint, free access to the ADHD Dad's private community of supportive members, a free audio lesson, the top 10 hacks for the ADHD Dad to thrive in the workplace, a free access to the Passion, Purpose, and Self Acceptance video collection, a free exclusive ADHD Dad T-shirt if you just pay for shipping and handling. All that is just for $79.95, and you can get that at AuthenticIdentityManagement.com/9 steps dash special offer. And I talked a lot about my How to Life workbook that like I just finished putting that up on the website as well. You can get that at AuthenticIdentityManagement.com at or / how to life. That's just $22.95. And I strongly, strongly, strongly suggest, even if you don't use my workbook, which lays it out for you step by step how to do it, you need to define what your values and beliefs are, define your goals, and stop living life running from fear and running to emotion. Like it needs to be based on something solid that
Mhm.
is going to not fail you when stress comes.
And what's the website once again?
It is authenticidentitymanagement.com is the is the overall website for more information about me and what I do. It is / 9 steps dash special offer if you're interested in my course with all the benefits. And then it is authenticidentitymanagement.com / how to life for the workbook.
We will certainly check that out. Once again, we're with the host of the Authentic On Air podcast, Authenticity Identity Coach Bruce Alexander here on the Mike Wagner Show. Just a few more things, Bruce. It's been really great. Learned a lot from you. What else can we expect in 2024 and beyond?
2024, I expect to be an abundant year. Like that's what everybody keeps telling me is 2024 is all about abundance. Which 2023, I found out towards the end was the word of the year was like authentic. So that was the year of authenticity. This is the year of abundance. I think that it's all lining up for me to really kind of start to take this ADHD life coach thing and really kind of go crazy with it. Right now, I'm like focusing on YouTube content, which you can find me at Authentic Bruce on YouTube. And so I'll be doing that. I'll be doing my coaching. And I think I'll probably try to release 2 more courses this year. I haven't decided exactly what they're going to be yet, but now that I've got my first course down, I've got that released. I think it's a really great course about ADHD communication. I think the next course is probably going to be about leadership, because that's something I find to be really really important is leadership in the home, leadership at work. Like it's something that is it's possible for everybody if you understand the importance of it, the value of it, and how you do it, without it's not as hard as people think it is. Like, that's
Mm-hmm.
the whole thing. None of this is as hard as people think it is. You just need to be told the steps you need to take to start being a leader in your life.
Mm-hmm. And that's a really good point as well, too. And who to consider biggest influence in the career?
Oh gosh, biggest influence in my career. I guess probably Garrett J. White. Um, like I said, the his talks, he talks a lot about being the man, just be the man, and that is something that like really spoke to my heart. Is I'd been running from the responsibility of being a husband, being a father, being the man of my household, which is something that it was a discussion that my wife and I had. Is like that's the kind of marriage that we wanted, where I was the leader of the household and I wasn't stepping up to the plate. um Seeing, like, hearing, I was always like already working on a lot of stuff and growing that way, but hearing him speak about it like really touched my heart and like really lit a fire under my butt to like stop procrastinating some of the stuff and really just like lean into it and really start being who my family needed me to be. So that's, and that's something that's really important to me is like being the provider to my family, not just financially, but like spiritually and, like providing a vision for my family as well.
Mm-hmm. And very important as well. And what's the best advice you can give to anybody at this point?
Oh gosh, that's such a broad question. Everybody's so different. I guess
Well,
the
I'm challenging you right now, Bruce. In general, it's just like I'm putting you right on the spot there. I'm kidding.
no, but I actually it goes back to the what I was saying earlier is you have to define your life's instruction manual because that is different for everybody. But the thing that remains the same is that if you don't define what matters to you, how are you going to do anything that matters? Like that's for everybody.
Hmm. And certainly indeed as well. Once again, we're with the host of the Authentic On Air podcast, Authenticity Identity Coach from Oklahoma City, Bruce Alexander here on the Mike Wagner Show. Bruce, a very big thank you for your time. You've been absolutely fantastic. Learned a lot from you. Looking forward to having you again soon. Keep us up to date. Keep in touch. Love having you back. Once again, what's the website? How do people contact you? Where can people purchase, check out your works, and check out your podcast?
Yeah, well, absolutely. So once again, Mike, first off, thank you for having me. This has been I've been on several podcasts, but I feel like you've really got your stuff together. Like you really that we were talking about that throwback radio feel. Like you've got it. Like the way that you were able to spout that stuff off and really just yeah, I think that you've got your show down really, really pat and everything's really tight. So once again, my name is Coach Bruce Alexander, and I am a life coach for ADHD men, but I don't just work with ADHD men. I kind of started focusing my marketing there. And as soon as I did, I started coaching two ADHD women, and I love working with them. So that's my, I'm really just here for anybody who, here's what I say and, kind of identifies with it. I want to help them. So once again, you can get the 9 steps for the ADHD dad to radically improve communication digital course, with the ADHD blueprint, the free community, the top 10 hacks for the ADHD dad to thrive in the workplace, the video collection, and the t-shirt. You can get that all at www.authenticidentitymanagement.com/9 steps hyphen special offer. And then you can get the how to life workbook to build your life's instruction manual at www.authenticidentitymanagement.com/how to life. You can also follow me on Authentic Bruce on YouTube. You can check out my Instagram at Authentic Identity Management. And, I'm also on Facebook at AuthenticIdentityManagement.com. I'm sorry, Authentic Identity Management. And, I post a lot of, if you like what I'm saying right now, then you should follow me, because this is the content I post. I talk about all this, the same type of stuff. I talk about like how you can strengthen your goals and your vision, how you can develop in your regular everyday day-to-day life without making major you don't need to learn any new fancy techniques or any like strange meditations or anything. It's simple practical advice on how you can take simple steps that you just put some effort into and completely change your life.
And again, the website
is authenticidentitymanagement.com is my overall website, where you can check out everything that I'm doing right now. And then the thing I'm really pushing is the course that I just released that I'm super proud of, and that is authenticidentitymanagement.com/9 steps hyphen special offer.
And we'll certainly check that out as well. Once again, Bruce, a very big thank you for your time. You've been absolutely amazing. Looking forward to having you again soon. Keep us up to date. Keep in touch. Live have you back. Wish all the best. And Bruce, you definitely have a great future ahead of you.
Thank you so much, Mike. I really appreciate it. I enjoyed it so much.